Well, hi there, hello, and welcome to the PitchGrid, the podcast that brings you news, insight, and analysis from both sides of the football world, the NFL, and the world of soccer, including the EFL Championship, Premier League, World Cup, and so much more. Y'all, we have a packed segment. So sorry I had to skip last week. We had some circumstances going on, but we are back in action for this week, and we have a lot to get to, including a Super Bowl recap. Who was to blame for the Patriots' blowout loss, and what did the Seahawks get right? Is Should a kicker have won MVP? We recap the NFL awards, who got snubbed potentially, who deserved it. We also look at the Hall of Fame class and the international games that were announced. There's a couple of huge stars also planning to hit free agency as well, so that could be massive in terms of this upcoming offseason. And then, of course, in the soccer world, we have all the EFL Championship action to get to, including a massive game has been set up at the top of the table in the championship. And do we have a leader that has completely bottled the league? We also have clubs in crisis. We have points deductions. We have all sorts of collapses, and then you have the relegation battle. The Premier League managers getting sacked, managers yet to be named in the Championship and the Premier League, and so much more. So without further ado, y'all, grab a popcorn, grab your favorite snack, and a drink of your choice. Me, I've got a Sprite on my hand, and we shall get into it. Let's head gridside and talk about Super Bowl 60. Super Bowl 60 was an event, for sure. Like, I don't know really how to describe it. I mean, I enjoyed it personally. Shout out to Answer the Call, our friends over at Answer the Call, Tim. I know you're probably listening to this whenever it drops. Um, Thanks for having me on the show. I said on his show the other day how I love a good defensive battle, and it's true. I really enjoy this kind of, stalemate type it was in the first half. Both defenses were on it. Neither team could really do much offensively in that first half. It felt like the game was perfectly balanced until New England just could not find anything. And Ken Walker got exactly the yards they needed, that Seattle needed to kick field goals, keep extending the lead slowly. Their defense made incredible play after incredible play. And then the second half, I mean, it was more of the same, really. In the third quarter, you really thought that this was going to be like a 13-0 game. It harkened back to me the days of 2018 when we had the Rams Patriots Super Bowl, which ended up 13-3, and Julian Edelman won that MVP for that game. Um, I mean, that was probably the most boring Super Bowl I've ever watched. Honestly, I fell asleep during that game actually, but it really got lively in the fourth quarter. Patriots finally broke through, scored a couple touchdowns, but by that point it was garbage time, and nothing could really be done. And it was a 16-point lead by the time Patriots really got going, and they really just did not know what hit them in the mouth. Drake May, you could tell this was a rookie young quarterback who had not seen this kind of stage before. You can tell, and in this game especially, because he looked afraid, he looked hesitant. If you look at the Super Bowl mic'd up, Julian Love even had him teed up on a certain cadence and knew exactly what his deep throw looked like. It's pretty cool. Go check that out if you haven't yet. But yeah, I mean that's how predictable he was in this game, and he's partially to blame. Yes, I mean his performance. He's the one who performs. He's he's the player. He's got to perform in the big game situations. I mean, goodness, he was second MVP voting, so you would expect him to perform and go out there and act. But also, I kind of blame the coaching staff a bit. Let's be honest. Like, they're supposed to help him get ready and prepare and game plan for this. It felt like the game plan was not the right game plan at all. I mean, it felt like to me, honestly, that Josh McDaniels was calling a game plan that Tom Brady would have been comfortable with. And Drake May, no offense to him, he's second MVP voting, like I said, but he's no Tom Brady. I mean, Brady would have hit certain throws that Drake May could have hit to help get the Patriots downfield, but his confidence by that point was just shattered. And when your confidence is shattered as an athlete in a big game, there's nothing you're really going to be able to do. And honestly, that's a coaching staff needs to help prepare their young quarterback to be ready for these situations and be sure that he's comfortable. The game I wanted to see, like, getting him some short, quick throws. Why they didn't adjust in this game is beyond me as well. Like, how do you not adjust after that first half? Anything. So you kind of just called the same gameplay that you called the entire game. Run, and then pass on third down when you had to pass. And it's an obvious passing situation. It is just so predictable until the fourth quarter when finally Seattle just was sitting off the receivers enough and such soft coverage that they were able to take advantage of it. Excuse me. Um, yeah, it's just it's crazy that they didn't like call like, okay, let's get Drake back into this game a bit. It's 9-0. Let's call some short passes. Let's try to catch them out on a rollout or a play action rollout or something just to get Drake May comfortable in the system, get him into the game, make sure that he's not just out there and thrown to the wolves. And honestly, also you got to put this on Vrabel. I mean, the defense played amazing, and that's his side of the ball and all of that. He won Coach of the Year. There's no doubt that he deserved it. After this Patriots team was 4-13 last year, but let's be honest, this is not the first time Mike Vrabel has choked in a game of this kind of magnitude. I mean, let's harken back to the days of 2021 when he was the coach of the number one seed Titans. They had the bye, and he choked a game against the Bengals, and that sent them on to their only the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. And yes, Joe Burrow in that offense was playing amazing that year, but this Titans team looked a shell of themselves in that game. And honestly, like, if it felt like Vrabel didn't have that team prepared, and the players were visibly frustrated. I mean, and it felt so similar to this game that we just saw on Super Bowl Sunday, where the Patriots just didn't feel prepared. Christian Gonzalez felt like the biggest player for the Patriots. If he doesn't break up 3 passes in that first half, this is probably a much, much bigger blowout than the score was. I mean, and really, let's be honest, the score really doesn't tell the entire story. Uh, it didn't even feel like a 16-point game, a 2-score game. It felt more like a 5-score game. That just it never felt attainable. I mean, at 9-0, it kind of felt over honestly at halftime because as much as the Seahawks had only made a slim 2-possession game, the Patriots were not doing a diddly squat on offense, and it's unfortunate because like they have some good players, um, and it felt like they were actually literally just fulfilling the definition of insanity, just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and expecting the same result, expecting a different result, and they didn't get that different result, and honestly. You know, that's on that. It's not just the players. Like the players like Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins really didn't seem like they gave a ton of effort, or Keyshawn Booty either. But like, I I, I don't also think I also think that the coaches also are somewhat to blame because it did not feel like people were saying, "Oh, Vrabel has Super Bowl experience as a player and all that." Well, it didn't show. It really didn't. It really felt like. I mean, you saw him yelling on the sideline and just telling Drake to calm down, calm down. Well, yeah, he has to calm down, but at the same time, like you're not helping him any. That's only gonna put more pressure on him. And yeah, so enough about the Patriots. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks on a fantastic run. They were the best team in this entire season. Really, I mean, let's be honest, no team really came close to this team all year. They had an incredible defense and an offense that complemented it very well. And really, let's be honest, the difference in this game from Drake May, not being able to slide up in the pocket and avoid sacks and, just throwing it away. Sam Darnold did the opposite in that first half and really made sure the Seahawks were able to get a lead even in this first half. It was only 9-0, but still, it felt like, Sam Darnold made a couple of plays that really just turned the entire, you know, game in the Seattle's favor, and that defense just what came to hunt. You have to think that this is a defense that is all time. Like, I don't know where to rank them. Honestly, I feel like this is, if I were to rank this team now, it would be recency bias. And to me, recency bias is a strong, strong drug that a lot of people drink right after the Super Bowl. And I don't want to drink it too much yet. I want the context. I want to, you know, drink it in a bit, give it some time to cool, and then we can talk about it. Because right now, this defense was truly incredible all season long. Some people are saying they're better than Legion of Boom. I can see both sides. But I don't know if, like, I buy it totally, Like, let's be honest, the Legion of Boom defense was incredibly special and something that we hadn't seen before in a while, since like maybe the Ravens defenses, and even then, like, this this defense feels very similar and yet not. It felt like a combination of a Ravens type defense and Legion of Boom. If I'm being frank, like they depend on their linebackers, which the Ravens of old did with Ray Lewis. They had quick safeties like Ed Reed. Um, it harkens back to a very nostalgic Ravens defense, which Mike McDonald, of course, is a former Raven, so that kind of makes sense. But also, like, it has a Seattle brand to it. Very scrappy players that they draft. Julian Love, Reek Woolen, Kobe Bryant, and then of course they got the you know underrated free agents like Ernest Jones, and it's just, yeah, it's a very, very interesting mix. I think, and really to put it into historical perspective, this was one of the top three, I think, DVOAs by a team in history. Um, is yeah, it shows how incredible a run the Seahawks had against some very good teams, and a team, even though they didn't look like it in this game, again, the Patriots, that are still very talented. And I want to address also Will Campbell. He gave up 14 pressures, very much to blame, but still, let's not totally rag on the dude. Like, he had an outstanding year. A lot of in the regular season, he was incredibly good. This postseason, he just melted. Let's be fair to him. He faced three incredible defenses that just four incredible defenses, really. Let's be honest. If you include the Chargers too, I almost forgot them. But four incredible defenses that stifled him and made him look bad. But this is his rookie year, and as the fourth overall pick, overall, he had a great season. Yes, he needs to clean up some things. Yes, he needs to make sure he's better. But I don't think, like, there's talk that, oh, should we move him to guard or whatever. I've heard people say that, and I don't think he should be moved yet. I think he needs to, if the coaches do what's right for him, they'll keep him there at tackle. They'll make sure he improves, learns some things, learns some other techniques, have him maybe go to train with someone else who can help teach him some things, and then see what happens from there. Maybe he's able to be flexed over to guard, and maybe that's where he belongs. He's got that kind of build. He could be a guard, but for now, I think unless you want his confidence completely shot, you need to stick with him right now at tackle, and he kind of needs the support from his coaches. And yes, he needs to work and improve, but still, like, he's just a kid. Like, I hate that people are ragging on a kid for, you know, yes, it's his job, but still, like, I feel bad for him because really he had an overall great season and just happened to have a bad postseason. And hopefully he turns it around and learns from this and can grow and, make sure he improves and can become a better tackle for his team and contribute. It's the Patriots. They have the coaching talent. So I believe they can do it. But, no offensive lineman's going to be gelled completely in 1 year. You've never seen, it's a rare exception when it does happen. Like, Creed Humphrey or, you know, Lane Johnson. Those are the rarities, It, so, yeah, just give him some time. I think he's going to improve. Let's head on to the NFL awards, which happened last Thursday, almost a week ago. We had a very interesting, list here. Let's look at MVP Matthew Stafford. This was the closest MVP race since 2003. Very well deserved for Matthew Stafford. I really came into this thinking he was going to be MVP, and he deserved it, and yes, he got it, even though it was close. With, of course, as we've said before, Drake May getting second. Also well deserved. Drake May had a fantastic season, despite a really dismal Super Bowl showing. He showed this year that he has the talent, and if he can capitalize and build and continue to develop his talents, he will get better, and he will use the Super Bowl experience valuably. But Matthew Stafford, just keeps adding to his resume. He led a Rams team all year that looked so good and felt like the best team in the NFL for the majority of the season. A lot of people were saying that the Rams or the Seahawks were the best team in the NFL, and I mean, honestly, they're kind of right. I mean, have you seen those three meetings that these teams had? The Rams were honestly the only team that really came close to sniffing the Seahawks, besides maybe the Titans. But like, and I'm only saying that because the Titans gave the Seahawks a game. But the Rams truly felt like they were the only one that really could go toe to toe with the Seahawks at any point. And yes, that's division rivals for you, but still, Matthew Stafford showed he still got it at um, after being in the league for so long, and how resilient is this guy, right? Like, oh my word, I so much respect Stafford and his career, and he fully deserved this MVP. If he gets another ring, y'all, I think he's gonna retire as one of the great quarterbacks of our generation. Offensive Player of the Year was Jackson Smith-Njigba. Totally well deserved. Had an incredible season, and truly this was his breakout year. And nobody could cover him this year. Nobody. I mean, he didn't have a great Super Bowl, but you could argue that Christian Gonzalez totally locked him down and is a very deserving foe for Jackson Smith-Njigba. And this was a guy that just broke all sorts of individual team records, and it's crazy how good this guy is, and can only get better. That's the scary part. He's only going to get better, ladies and gentlemen. Myles Garrett, of course, Defensive Player of the Year. I think we all kind of assumed that was going to happen after he broke the sack record. All-time sack record by Michael Strahan. Well deserved. I mean, it was pretty much a unanimous vote. And yeah, wow, just an incredible season by Myles Garrett, playing on a Browns team that really, had a great defense. Has the pieces. Um, Now, with the whole Jim Schwartz situation, is that going to change? How much? All that. Yeah, it's just going to be crazy um, how this turns out with the Browns and Garrett. But right now, totally well deserved. Breaking the sack record on a team like the Browns, that's quite the achievement. And this guy's going to come down as one of the best pass rushers of our era, outside of Aaron Donald, maybe. Just well deserved. Man, has he has he been such a beast the last couple of years, especially. Offensive Rookie of the Year went to Tyrone McMillan of the Panthers. Well deserved, in my opinion. He went over 1,000 yards on a Panthers team that, needed that kind of number one threat, and McMillan showed that he was exactly it, and what the Panthers needed to help get them into the playoffs and win the division. Even though it's the NFC South, yes, I know, but still, like the Panthers, they definitely improved on a season last year that they finished strong on, and now look to get even better as seasons go on. And McMillan's going to be a huge cornerstone of that rebuild and that David Canales is building there in Charlotte. This wasn't a close vote. I was kind of shocked that Jackson Dart only got one vote, I believe, for this award, and Tyler Shug won 5 of the votes. And yeah, it wasn't close, but Tyler Shug, like, let's shout him out real quick. Like, this guy came in and made the Saints better instantly, and it proved a lot of people wrong. I can think of several people who called him a bust and was not that great a quarterback, but he's proved a lot of people wrong. And if he keeps developing, man, is he going to go places. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Carson Schweisinger, well deserved. Another Brown getting an award this year, and well deserved too. He played so well, and I was so impressed by him. Mike Vrabel got Coach of the Year. Again, like I said earlier, he deserved that award after turning the Patriots around from 4-13 last year to a Super Bowl appearance, and really trying to set the precedent again of the evil empire. Vrabel, of course, after his time in Tennessee, deserved a redemption arc, and this definitely was it. This is a fun Patriots team, folks. Like, this is not your Patriots of old. I know a lot of people hate on him on this team, but you have to admire like what they have done and what Vrabel has accomplished with this team. Josh McDaniels won Assistant Coach of the Year, well deserved, I think, for getting Drake May second in the MVP voting, and really improving a quarterback that really not a lot of people had a lot of faith in after last season. So well deserved for McDaniels. Another reason to pat his resume as one of the better assistant coaches, especially during the Brady years. Like, he helped make Brady good too. Let's be honest. Comeback Player of the Year was Christian McCaffrey, well deserved too. After horrible injuries last year, came back, played very well. Um, yeah, I mean, this was kind of assumed, I think, by a lot of people that he would be the winner of this award, just because how well he played, and Joe Burrow probably could have been up for this award if he hadn't got hurt himself. But McCaffrey totally deserved it, especially playing so well this year. Joe Tooney won the first ever Protector of the Year award, and he deserves it too, man. As a Chiefs fan, I admire Tooney so much. Love that guy. He's such a great guy. Off the field and on the field, he's so good. I get why my Chiefs drafted and traded him away. We could not handle his cap hit, and that's totally understandable. Like, as we had to do that with Tyreek Hill, and I don't know how much longer Tooney has, but I have so much respect for him and how versatile he is and willing to be a team player. And he showed that in Chicago. His first year, well deserved, though I think Creed Humphrey should have probably gotten a lot more votes for this award with how well he plays. He still has not given up a sack in 3 years, folks. Let's give Creed Humphrey some respect. That guy is a baller, and I love him. And yes, that's my bias coming out. But Creed Humphrey still, I love that guy. One of the best offensive linemen in this league. Walter Payton, Man of the Year, Bobby Wagner. I mean, we all know the good things that Bobby Wagner does off the field and on the field, how much of a great leader he is for his team, and goodness, well deserved. Washington Commanders, I believe, linebacker, and just even though they weren't great this year on the field, like the Walter Payton Man of the Year truly honors some great individuals over the years, and Bobby Wagner's definitely one of them. he came into the league, I think, not that well respected. Just, he was like, who is this guy? And I think he came in with some character issues, but man, growing into the Seattle defense and the Legion of Boom, and then moving around, he's shown how valuable he can be to a lot of teams, and as a captain and a leader of men. So, congratulations to all of our award winners this year from the NFL awards. All well deserved. I don't think really anyone got snubbed. I do think like Jackson Dart maybe for Offensive Rookie of the Year kind of felt like a low blow to only get one vote. Otherwise, I don't see anyone here that really I could sticks out as like a sore thumb of not getting it and not deserving of this award. You could argue maybe an assistant coach of the year maybe would be a stick out. Yeah, that's probably the one I could say. McDaniel's why, but like I get also why he was voted that. So not a lot of complaints for me this year. And speaking of the NFL awards, we had the Hall of Fame class. This was an awesome Hall of Fame class. Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Roger Craig all got in. I absolutely nailed this class. Perfect class. Like Roger Craig, absolute legend of the 49ers running back. Like, so underrated. And I love that he got in. I mean, you saw him, he cried, and you saw how much this meant to him, and how much it meant to all these guys. Drew Brees, of course, one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my lifetime. Great leader of men, great guy off the field and on the field. Broke so many records, holds still a lot of records. You know, he lost one of his records to Patrick Mahomes, but it shows how incredible Drew Brees is and always will be in like NFL stats. There's going to be lots more guys to add into this list, but right now, like Drew Brees, in my mind, is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. Larry Fitzgerald, of course, one of the best receivers of our time, not even close. Could catch anything and was so willing to be versatile. One of my favorite things about Larry Fitzgerald is how willing he was to play for the team. Um, he stuck with the Cardinals all of his career, never once wanted to leave, loved the organization, played for them even the bad years, and he deserved a ring, man. This guy deserved a ring, and I feel horrible that he never got one. But like this dude, one of my favorite things. If you watch All or Nothing on Prime Video, the 2015 Cardinals, Bruce Arians has to go into the slot. And how willing, and he doesn't argue. Larry Fitzgerald had never played in the slot before until that year. And it really did. And Bruce Arians talks about it. He was trying to help him lengthen his career. It truly did lengthen his career. Like, he played until, I think I think he played 5 more years. Like, that's incredible. Like, it's a genius move by Bruce Arians, but like for Larry Fitzgerald to take that in stride, not complain, not make a fuss about it, like so many people do in the current game, and just be a team player. It shows how great of a guy Larry Fitzgerald is, and of course his charity work is insane. And his story as well, how he got into the league and really became a good player is also incredible. Luke Kuechly, of course, insane to watch. I know why he retired because of safety reasons, but if he had kept going, would have been one of the best linebackers of all time. And he already kind of was. The Cincinnati native, just absolute standout. He could read defenses like a book, offenses like a book, knew how to study film. Is a very classic example of how to be a good linebacker and a good film junkie. Honestly, he reminds me of a newer version of Sam Smith, the legend Panthers linebacker, part of the Dome Patrol as well for the Saints. Actually, Sam Smith is the one that keep pounding, and that was his motto. And the Carolina Panthers still use it to this very day as their motto. And it kind of feels appropriate that Luke Kuechly kind of reminds me of Smith, and just how he wasn't a huge talent coming out of college, wasn't one of the top names ever mentioned, but boy, Kuechly came to play every week, and you knew he was going to dominate. Adam Vinatieri, of course, the clutch kicker of the 20th century, without a doubt. Like, this guy kicked so many clutch kicks. When the Patriots needed him the most, he was there. He kicked all those winning field goals, was a part of so many good moments with the Patriots dynasty. Truly one of the best kickers ever. Ever. Like, he has so many records, and, one of the most accurate kickers also in NFL history as well. So, well-deserved. Love this Hall of Fame class. I can't think of a better group of guys to get into the Hall of Fame than them. We also had 2 international games be announced. The 49ers versus Rams is going to be in Melbourne, Australia. I have some thoughts on this. I don't like that it's so early in the season and that's a divisional game. It feels okay. Tangent here. So I'm a fan of Kansas State, and we had to go play Iowa State in Ireland this last season, and the first week of the year, and we come back and we didn't get a bye. I'm hoping Rams and Niners get a bye after this, because after we came back from Ireland, Kansas State, they started 1-5, and I really truly believe it was because we looked tired. We just did not look at it at all. And I truly believe it's because we're not able to rest. And you look at Iowa State, like, they really didn't do that great either. And I truly believe it's because we didn't get that rest after Ireland, and it really messed up our season. And so, I think, the NFL needs to be careful with, like, bye scheduling for these international games. I love there's more international games. You get to see all the cool fan bases. Germany and London always ball out uh, with their showing and these games, and of course they're the traditional ones. Germany's more recent, but still, it's really cool to see those fan bases show out. And of course, Spain did well last year, and I wish we had gotten Ireland, but like, still Melbourne's going to be fun. Rio is we know that the Cowboys are going to be playing in Rio this year. We're going to have our first ever game there. Also, we're going to have our first ever game in Paris, so that's going to be really cool as well. I'm looking forward to these games, honestly. Like, I always look forward to international games. They don't always perform well just because, jet lag and travel fatigue and all that. But still, like, and it also feels like a way to get, like, people watching teams they don't normally watch. But still, it's you always look forward to seeing how the international game is growing. The international aspect of this game is growing, and you always see so many people showing out for these events, and it's really cool to see how the NFL is gaining more and more traction internationally, and I really like that a lot. Um, I didn't get to go over the Mike LaFleur and Klint Kubiak hires. Those were both made official, especially Klint Kubiak this week. In particular, was made official. I like both hires. Klint Kubiak is going to be a fun hire, I think, for the Raiders. If the Raiders are patient with him, he can do well. And they need a lot of rebuilding, a lot of restructuring for the Raiders. But it's the same thing with LaFleur and the Cardinals. If both franchises are patient with these coaches, they will be good, I think. LaFleur has to get rid of Kyler Murray eventually, but like, I think he has the right GM. He has the pieces in place on offense and defense to make a good run. If he can get a solid quarterback, I think LaFleur can go places with this Cardinals team. I really do. They're young and hungry on the defensive side, and the offensive side too has some young and upcoming stars as well. Klint Kubiak also has stars on his team, and if he can build an offensive line and get a solid, if Mendoza pans out like we all think he will, then the Raiders are probably going to be just fine in a few years as well. So it's going to be so interesting to see. If I had to have a coaching hire that I'm the most excited for, though, it's definitely the Titans with Saleh and Dayball. Like, I am so excited for this Titans team this next year. I'm not going to lie. I feel like, even though it's very early, we have not seen how they're going to spend the $100 million cap yet. but if they spend it wisely, they have the coaching staff to do this well. Dayball can mentor Cam Ward. We can see solid coach up a defense without restrictions from an owner, because the Titans owner is starting to be more hands off. Let's be honest. So I feel like there's going to be some changes, and we're not going to see the same Robert Saleh we saw in New York. I truly think this is going to be we're seeing a different kind of Solid this time around. We're seeing him learning from his mistakes with the Jets and making sure that he doesn't repeat those, and that he can actually try to turn this franchise around into a winner like they deserve to be. And this is, the old Oilers team. It's now the Titans, and those Oilers teams never got to go to a Super Bowl, and of course this Titans team made it to one under Jeff Fisher. It's a franchise that deserves a lot, and it's a very historic franchise, and I'm hoping that Solid can turn them around, because I would be excited to see them do well. Um, we also had some news regarding Maxx Crosby and David Njoku coming out both. Pro Football Talk, and yes, let's be honest, Pro Football Talk doesn't always have the most reliable reporting. They're the ones that say that Andy Reid's going to retire every year. Yes, I'm calling you out, Mike Florio. I don't like how you call out every year that Andy Reid's going to retire every year, and it never happens. It just never happens. I know he's getting close to it, but he's made his plan very clear. Mike Florio just, I think, wants to be right on this 1 year, and he keeps reporting it. But anyways, yeah, I don't always trust Mike Florio's reporting, but he's saying that Maxx Crosby told Tom Brady that he will never play for the Raiders again, and David Njoku has told the Browns that he will not play for the Browns again and wants to test free agency. Now, these are two huge pieces in their own unique way. Maxx Crosby, of course, one of the best pass rushers in the game, and could be a dynamic ad. He could be what Micah Parsons was on the free agent market last year, honestly, if he were to get traded. I mean, it's very similar to that, I think, and him and Parsons. And of course, Parsons had a huge impact on the Packers defense this last season. Um, it's crazy how this market is going to be tough for him. I think for them. I think if the Raiders do actually trade him, I don't know. There's a lot of places I could see him going, but I'm not quite sure. I think if the price was right, maybe Tennessee could afford his contract. There's not a lot of teams that can have a ton of cap that could actually take him on and would actually be contenders. Obviously I would like him on the Chiefs, but I could see the Titans taking him on in that contract that he just signed. I could see Atlanta taking him on, maybe, now that they got Kirk Cousins out of the way. Yeah, it is just going to be very interesting to see how the market is affected on this, um, depending on how this offseason goes. And now that we have our coaching cycle closed for the year, it's going to be very interesting to see now in a few weeks how this shakes out in free agency and all that, and how these teams are going to be filled out. And in Njoku, I think he would fit perfectly in Atlanta, honestly, if they let Kyle Pitts go. I think David Njoku would be a very interesting fit in Atlanta to pair with Michael Penix. Give him a good tight end target that actually can catch balls pretty consistently. David Njoku is always one of the bright spots on the Browns offense, but with Harold Fannon's emergence this last season, I kind of see why he feels like he needs to leave. Because it did feel like by the end of the year, the Browns liked Fannon over Njoku, and he didn't feel as utilized, so I get kind of why he wants to leave. And, Harold Fannon's just a good tight end in general. One of the better draft hits that the Browns have actually had in recent memory, besides Garrett. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting offseason, and I'm looking forward to covering it because, really, this is going to be a year offseason of change, and we're really going to see if these contenders from last year really just had a slump or if they're going to bounce back. So, looking forward to that, but it's been a fun season, a really fast-paced season, a crazy year, full of upsets and teams that we didn't expect, and a lot of parity. And it's been so cool to see all that happen. With all that said, let's head pitch side now and talk about the other football. Let's head to the EFL Championship first. This has been a crazy couple of weeks, folks. Lots and lots to talk about, including at the top of the table, where we saw Coventry slip up again. This last weekend, they drew 0-0 with 23rd place Oxford United at home. And this was, dropping points again for Coventry is so huge because, like, a lot of the narrative had been, oh, well, they're bad on the road, but, they're so good at home. They'll just, be able to scrape by at home. And yes, this is a team in Coventry that is incredible at the CBS Arena. But, you know, I'm truly baffled by the fall of Coventry. Let's be honest. This is a team that was scoring goals for fun. They were scoring 5 and 4. They put 7 past QPR at the start of the season. They looked like a tank. They were just going to roll this division over, go to the Premier League without a problem. And they had at one point a 13-point lead at the top of the table. For our fans that are totally used to the point system, 13 points, you have 3 points for every win, a point for a draw, and 0 for losses. So, a 13-point lead, if you were to just break this down, it's about a 5-game gap that you would have to make points up on. And in November, at the end of November, this was a 10-point gap. So it's a huge gap and one that is not easily surmounted. And yet, Coventry, in the span of 2 to 3 months, let a 10-point lead evaporate. And with 5 wins, 10, I think it was like 10 losses, something like that. They just have not looked the same Coventry. And it's interesting watching the game of versus Oxford United. They look like a different team. They don't look like quick, pacey passing and really really sexy shooting and quick determination and they were making quick patterns of play and triangles and it was so fun to watch and it felt like they had no pressure on them at all. But now they looked in that Oxford game like they were just passing it from side to side and hoofing these crosses in constantly into the box of Oxford United. And Oxford they came there to take a point, and they got that point by defending well, even when they went down to 10 men with the red card to Will Lancashire. This was this is a crazy division, folks. It can do things to you. It can, as a fan of it, you don't know what's going to happen next because one week a team can look great, the next week they're going to look bang average, and right now we're seeing Coventry just it's so fascinating to me because, like, okay, let's think about it this way as well. Coventry, last season, when they went on that incredible run, they went from 23rd, they sacked their club legend, Mark Robbins, and replaced him with Frank Lampard. They shot up the table, and it was a magical run for them. They were the darlings of the league that year because they were scoring goals, late goals. They were scoring these. They were winning close, tight games at the end of the season and really putting pressure on the playoff places. And this year, like the thing I see that's a difference from them from last season, they aren't they aren't really doing the thing they were last year with closing out games and winning the tight games. Like, yes, they're winning them early, but like if it gets down to it, like let's take the QPR game a couple of weeks ago. They were up 1-0 in the first half after 55 minutes. 15 minutes later, they're down 2-1, and they don't look like they can score ever again after they go down 2-1. That's crazy. Like last season, I would have expected them to win 3-2. And earlier this year, I would have probably expected them to win 3-2 or 4-2 even. And now they just look completely shot and devoid of ideas in that final third. Once they go down, it feels like they just take a shot to the heart. And yes, they're dealing with some injuries, they're dealing with absences, but the midfield is so tired. You can tell they're tired and they're leggy and they feel the pressure and they just don't know what to do on offense at times. their transfer window was interesting as well. Um, yeah. By contrast, though, let's look at Middlesbrough. They've won 6 straight now after a huge couple of wins, one against two informed teams in Norwich City and Sheffield United. On Monday night was the Sheffield United game, and this Middlesbrough team, man, they look so informed. They have some great passages of play. Kim Hellberg has them playing so well. I love listening to Kim Hellberg, man. This guy can talk my ear off about how he uses tactics from different sports like basketball for game management and man management, and how to use a press. And it's just crazy how he's like, oh well, in American football we can look at them for how to improve our our pressing and how to get people open into certain spaces. It's just so fascinating. I highly recommend, even if you're an NFL fan, go listen to this guy talk about tactics. Like, if he were an American football coach, I would want him as my coach. Like, seriously, this guy knows his tactics, knows his football. He is truly a grinder of the game. And right now, like, it's so crazy to think about how this Middlesbrough team last year was dropping points constantly from winning positions. This year, they have not dropped a single point from winning positions all year, and that just shows like the as much as Middlesbrough fans want to hate on Rob Edwards and for him leaving for Wolves and all that, like, goodness, he set a foundation for that defense, and it's paying off now in these latter stages of the season, because now his defense compared with Kim Hellberg's tweaks on the attack, boy, Middlesbrough have been clinical, and it sets up a huge match on Monday night. Top 2 teams, Coventry and Middlesbrough. Whoever wins this, if there is a winner, could really have all the momentum going into the rest of the season. If Middlesbrough win, they go 5 points clear of Coventry. They're already 2 point. They already have a 2 point gap on Coventry. That would be massive, massive, and I think it really could shoot the confidence of Coventry all the way down. A Coventry win could really galvanize them, honestly. And this is a team in Middlesbrough that have not won at the CBS Arena in quite a while. So this is going to be a blockbuster showdown of the top 2 teams in this division, and really could set the precedent for the rest of the promotion race. I'm so excited. We had Hull City slip up this last week. They fell to the Bristol City 3-2. I honestly don't know what to think about Hull City. Sometimes they play okay, sometimes they don't. They had a 0-0 draw in midweek last week with Watford, where they really didn't look like the better team. I like to think that they can sustain a push for top 6. I think Hull City are very close to maintaining a top 6 spot. However, they just need to be more consistent for me. I want to see consistency for them, and if they're wanting to push for top 2, I would. It would be cool to see them after all they've been through this entire season with the transfer embargo and not being able to really sign players, and Jukarovic coming in after all the mess that Hull City had been in the last few years. Now all of a sudden they're fighting for a top 2 spot and making it interesting with Ipswich Town and all that. Hull City and Ipswich are just making this a fun promotion race this year. We didn't have this the last few years. It's really cool to see that teams are making it competitive and fun, and we have some interesting teams like Hull and a team like Ipswich who are just came down from the Premier League and yet are trying to fight to stay up in the playoff places. It just shows how deep, how chaotic this league is, and I love it. Wrexham lost a huge game to Millwall this last weekend, 2-0. Millwall just showing their prowess, man. This is a gritty team in Millwall that just don't know how to give up and will fight tooth and nail defensively. They're so sound, especially at the Den. Of course, they always are so good at the Den. But Alex Neil has made this team a different kind of animal this year. And I really think that Millwall are actually going to do it this year. I actually do think this is a team, they have enough attacking talent, just enough, that they can, sneak into that playoffs. and they have the defense to actually make a run in the playoffs. I do think, because when you get to playoff time, it really depends on how good your defense is, and Millwall are pretty good, especially at home in that regard. Birmingham City have now made a crazy, have made it all the way to within 1 point of the playoffs. They had a very disappointing draw with West Brom yesterday, a goalless one where they just couldn't get the ball into the net. They had a goal disallowed for offsides that it was kind of shaky. I can see both sides of the call. But yeah, it's a disappointing draw in a derby game against another fellow Midlands team in West Brom that was struggling at the bottom of the table, and had Isaac Price, one of the West Brom players, going at the away fans when West Brom was at Pompey or Portsmouth. West Brom are in crisis, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But goodness, like, this is a 3 points that Birmingham should have gotten at home, and they have been so good at home for so long that it's crazy that they didn't get all 3 points. They did get 3 points against Leicester City, though, who are also in crisis, and we're going to get to in a minute. But yeah, it's such a crazy league. Let's talk though about the game of the week. And that was yesterday, and this leads perfectly to the topic of Leicester City, honestly, because they played Leicester City yesterday. Southampton did. Leicester City were up 3-0 in the space of 30 minutes. 3-0, and you would think this game is over, right? This is cooked. That Leicester actually, gotten themselves a bit of momentum in a couple weeks that where they had just been morally demolished in terms of having a points deduction, losing their manager, being near the relegation zone, and only above it on goal difference alone. And yet, what happens next is the most catastrophic thing that could ever happen to the Foxes, and Southampton scores 4 goals in the second half, and Leicester show no fight at all. They look void of ideas. They don't try going forward. They plan to just sit on that 3-goal cushion, and it blows spectacularly in their face in front of their home fans. And this is a former Premier League champion we're talking about, Leicester City, who blew a 3-goal lead. This is the first 3-goal lead, by the way, that has been blown by a team in the EFL Championship since 2010, when Preston came back from 4-1 down to win 6-4 against Leeds United. That's crazy, folks. And this is also the first 3-goal comeback, 3+ goal comeback in the EFL since 2019, when Sheffield Wednesday, I should say, when Sheffield Wednesday made their incredible comeback against Peterborough United in the playoff semifinal second leg, where they came all the way back from 4-0 down to tied at 4-4 and won on a penalty shootout. It just shows how rare a 3+ goal comeback is, and it's probably one of the games, if not the game of the season, for how chaotic and how incredible the turnaround was. And yes, we have to give the plots to Southampton. This is a team that just came down from the Premier League, had the worst season in Premier League history before Wolves came in and said, I'll hold my beer." But this is a league, that shows chaos all the time, right? But this is a Southampton team that looked bad for large portions of the season, and yet right now they're only a point off the top 6. That's insane, folks. Like, just literally insane. Thinking about how even 2 wins can get you from mid-table to a point from mid-table and about 5-6 points off the playoffs to within a point in a couple of weeks. It's just crazy to me. And that's why I love this league. It's so chaotic, and you never know what to expect. And even for the neutral, it's so fun to watch. And Southampton, they have the quality. They just hadn't showed it all year. And I think this is the first game that you're like, wow, this is a team that's resilient and can actually come back and fight for something. And you really haven't seen that all year from Southampton. So good for Southampton. I also want to shout out Norwich City real quick. This is a team under Philip Clement that is just in form and buzzing. It does not look like a team that they were in coming into December with Liam Manning. They look so completely different. What a turnaround. Have to praise Philippe Clement for turning this team around and really getting them. I think they're probably going to be safe out of the relegation zone. So kudos to them for that. Leicester City, though. Leicester City, of course, they were deducted 6 points for breaching PSR violations this last week. They overspent 20 over the threshold of £20.8 million in terms of wages and other expenditures, and that's only in the 2022-2024 PSR period that happened and closed recently. So there's rumors that there could be more charges headed the way of Leicester, more deductions of points. But for now, it feels like a very, very light punishment for Leicester City, considering how much of this was in the open and how well documented this was about how blatantly Leicester have just been overpaying players. I mean, they've got several on 90 plus grand a week, 90 plus 1,000 pounds a week. It's just insane. Like the players, the wages they are paying, and how much they are paying for transfer fees and stuff. And it came back to bite them eventually. Premier League was pushing, according to John Percy, for a 20-point deduction. That would have killed this team. That would have doomed them to League One if they got that 20-point deduction. Now, let's just say they hinted at maybe fighting this. I don't see the point of fighting it seriously. Like, this is a 6-point deduction. It was rumored to be 9 plus. And yes, you don't want to be in the relegation zone, but on appeal, this probably gets you, 2 fewer points than 6. 4 points still doesn't change much in terms of how bad the season has been for Leicester City. They are in absolute crisis mode, folks. They are only above the relegation zone on goal difference. And honestly, like, after that Southampton game, do you really trust them to really be better than Blackburn? Like, yes, Blackburn don't have a ton of attacking threat, and Leicester City on paper do, but at least Blackburn can grind out results. I don't know. It's so hard, and yet, and there's a possibility now after this result that you could truly see Leicester City maybe getting relegated, and that's crazy to say. It's kind of crazy. It's the same thing with like Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League right now. They're right in the thick of the relegation battle, and yet with all the quality on paper that Tottenham has, you wouldn't think that they'd be on the verge of relegation, but they are. And yet, Bromley versus Leicester City could be a thing next season in League One. Like, could you imagine? It's just disastrous. Like, this team had no spirit, no fight. Andy King, goes from playing and celebrating a Premier League trophy to coaching a team and that looks devoid of ideas and just defeated. And this is, a club with bad ownership, you know, and ownership that doesn't really seem to care. Ever since the owner died in a plane crash a few years ago, a very tragic thing to happen, of course. But his son took over, and ever since, it's just looked like he just doesn't care about this team like his father did. It really doesn't, and it's tragic. Because this is a Leicester team that was like the ideal for a lot of clubs in this league, in the Championship. Like, oh, we can go be Leicester, we can go up into the Premier League and compete for the title. But obviously, they kind of cheated their way to it with wages and try to compete like the big boys when they were not the big boys. And they're now paying the price for it. And maybe they just need to be like a Birmingham City, where they have to go down in order for them to get better and change and have a whole reset. Honestly, you can say the same for West Brom. Right now, they are also in crisis. Granted, they have had a couple of nice draws in their recent 2 games, goalless, granted, but still draws, still points that they are accumulating. It's better than nothing, like Leicester City. Sorry, Foxes fans. it feels like it feels important now, considering West Brom had been in disaster mode after a 5-0 loss to Pompey, a 3-0 loss to Pompey, a 5-0 loss to Norwich. It felt like Eric Ramsey's football was just crumbling before our very eyes. We were seeing the baggies maybe going down to League One potentially. And yes, I think these draws have stabilized the ship for now, but I don't think it'll paper over the cracks for long, because there are still cracks in this team. This is a West Brom team that has a lot of weaknesses and is not that great going forward. They're solid defensively, but they just aren't great going forward. They have a lot of aging talent. The owner, they had their sporting director step down, and really, the Eric Ramsey does not feel like the correct choice for manager for West Brom right now. And I think they're probably going to stay up. On paper, you would think they have too much quality, like Leicester City, to go down. But my word, it's so crazy to have both them and Leicester City in the relegation zone with a potential for going down right now. But with these couple of draws, they are at least gaining momentum and gaining points and getting away a bit from the relegation zone. So yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy couple of weeks in the EFL Championship. Let's head to the Premier League real quick. We had some huge results. Burnley has gotten, they've had a weird year all year in the relegation. I'm really confident that Burnley are probably going to come back down to the EFL Championship. They are the yo-yo club right now in the English top two tiers, and they go up to the Premier League, they come back down, they go back up, and they come back down. It's just doesn't seem to end. And they lost to Sunderland a couple of weeks ago, and yet look at them today. They beat Crystal Palace. Like, was not expecting that result. A 3-2 win over Crystal Palace. And this Burnley team had not won in like 17 games before that. It's crazy. It really is. Like, Aston Villa, I mean, they go from being stunned by 10-man Brentford to winning against Brighton today, getting an own goal to keep themselves within 6 points of title leader holders Arsenal, of not ahead of league leaders Arsenal. And Chelsea, they scrape a win out against West Ham and then get a draw against Leeds United this week. It's just a crazy Premier League, man. Like, we really don't know what's going on. Also, we had Man United, after going on 4 straight wins, that guy was so close to getting his hair cut. If you don't know about the story of the haircut, like, it's a whole thing. Go look up United Strand. Apparently, they're getting sued by Mark Goldbridge because of how close it is to United Stand, and like how they're mimicking Goldbridge and his group apparently that are Man United, the United Stand or whatever. It's crazy. But anyways, go look up United Strand and the haircut. It's a great rabbit hole if you want to go into that, and just how insane it is that this guy won't cut his hair until Manchester City won 5 straight games, and they were on the verge of that. And yet West Ham decided, no, we're going to come and play and give you a fight, and they got a draw against Man United. So now they're going to have to wait for this guy to cut his bird nest of a haircut. The videos coming out about this are kind of silly. It's a great joke, and obviously he's doing it for clickbait, but still, it's great. Liverpool, you know, they have the great game against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, crushing them 4-1, and then they go to home against Manchester City, and they go up 1-0, and then they show kind of what they've been doing all season, and collapsing against Manchester City, losing 2-1, having the weirdest, bizarre ending to this game, where it could have been 3-1, except Szoboszlai was ruled to have pulled Erling Haaland back, and as a dial goal scoring opportunity, it became a free kick, and yeah, it's crazy. Just go watch that last little bit of the game. It's insane how Liverpool just capitulated. Honestly, um, man, they went from having a screamer of a goal by Szoboszlai, absolute beauty of a free kick, and you think, oh wow, Liverpool have broken down the defense. They're going to actually win this, get themselves into a title race. maybe, well, not title race, but for Liverpool, the title race is out of the question. But they're going to get themselves right back into the Champions League spots, all that, and then they capitulate. In 15 minutes, they allow 2 goals. Allison makes a boneheaded play. I mean, I know he's done so much good for Liverpool, but at the same time, like, this was one of the plays where you're like, why are you charging to cut down Erling Haaland in the box? Like, if there's one guy you do not charge to cut down, it's Erling Haaland. And he did, gave them a penalty. Erling Haaland scores it, and Liverpool don't have much time to go get the equalizer, and they don't. So, yeah, it's crazy. Like, Manchester City, like, they just keep on rolling and keep themselves firmly within that title race. And even though they may look dead, they are dead. But I think there's enough inconsistency in Man City that they're probably gonna see out this title race and win the league. I just can't see anyone really just cruising by them. Even though a lot of people don't like how they play, I think it's not that bad compared to some other teams like Burnley, like we saw last year in the championship. Honestly, I'd much rather watch Arsenal than last year's Burnley. Burnley were such a hard watch in the championship. It really was. We had a couple of sackings also this week. And then the space of 24 hours, we had Tottenham sacking Thomas Frank after their loss to Newcastle yesterday. And then Nottingham Forest sacked Sean Dyche after a goalless draw with Wolves, who of course only now have 9 points total in the league and only 12 games to go in the season. And Nottingham Forest, they got drawn into both of these teams had gotten drawn into a relegation battle. And you would not have thought that last year when Nottingham Forest were the European places competing for maybe a top 4 spot in the Champions League, and they eventually fall into the Conference League places instead. I mean, they were competing for Champions League for long stretches of time last season, and this is now they're within striking distance of West Ham, who are in some decent form right now, especially after that draw with Man United. And you've got to get a lot of credit to West Ham for fighting and trying to keep themselves within the league. I think they're only 3 points back of Nottingham Forest and 5 back of Tottenham. And I can see why both of these teams sacked their managers. Like Frank, obviously, is a great coach. Obviously, look at his work with Brentford. Solid job there. And, he's a great tactician, a great leader of men. Brentford fans loved him. It's just, at some point with Tottenham, you have to think this is more than just the coach. That's the problem. They keep sacking their managers year after year when they don't succeed. Look at Ange Postecoglou. He won them a trophy, but at the same time, he gets sacked after winning them a trophy that they hadn't won in so many years. They had not won a trophy, and yet they win a European trophy, and he gets sacked. Ironically enough, Ange goes to Nottingham Forest this year, and he gets sacked after a disastrous time there. And at some point with Tottenham, you have to think the players just are not that good. And I would have to agree. These players at Tottenham, as much as they, are recognizable names and all that in terms of how good they have been in the past, I just don't see them as that good anymore. I really don't. And I think you have to reset. If you're the recruitment team, you have to really look hard at yourself and say, okay, where did we go wrong? And what can we do to improve this team? What can we do to improve our academy? Make sure that we're making our players better and our quality and our what product on the pitch better instead of, oh, it's the manager's fault because he can't get a tactics right with his team. At some point, it's not just the manager, it's also the players. And I think with Nottingham Forest, it's as simple as they really they flew too close to the sun. Last year they hit the European places. They looked like they were doing great, and they had finally turned a corner in their history after a long time of being a yo-yo club and all that. And yet, I think they just flew too close to the sun with the health concerns also played a part in this. You also have the European schedule just playing tricks on them and making it incredible match congestion and fixture congestion. And in England, you already have a ton of games you have to play anyway, and yet you have to play in Europe too. And now Nottingham Forest are in the European playoffs, the Conference League, and Tottenham are also having trouble with their European congestion as they're in the Champions League. You know, they're top four in the Champions League after winning a trophy with Ange last year. You know, and after winning the Conference League, and they go, I mean, the Europa League, and they go to the Champions League, and they're top four. So it's not been a complete disaster for Thomas Frank in terms of the season. As much as the league has been awful, they have been pretty good in the Champions League. Um, it's just a crazy season for both of these clubs, and could you imagine Tottenham Hotspur folks in the Championship? I honestly think this club could spiral if they were to go down to the Championship because you can't pay the wages that you've been paying in the Premier League. You can't, you know, I mean it's going to be the same with Nottingham Forest. Let's be honest, but you could have a possibility of a team in the Championship in Tottenham or Nottingham Forest that are playing in Europe. How wild would that be? You have a team that's not only playing for place back in the Premier League, but they're going to be playing in Europe potentially if Nottingham Forest or Tottenham should get relegated. Like that's insane to think about. Like almost mind-boggling. I don't know if Tottenham would stay in the Champions League because of course they won't be in Champions League places next year, and they aren't going to win one of the big cups. I don't think so. Unless they win the Champions League, they're probably not going to be in Europe. But Nottingham Forest potentially could win the Conference League and get to play in Europe while in the Championship if they were to get relegated. Because I think it's going to come down to one position, and that's the last relegation spot. I already think Burnley and Wolves are pretty much relegated already. Wolves are having the worst season in Premier League history right now. As of recording, they only have 9 points, and Southampton last year set the record, and that was 12. So they're close to making sure Southampton are the worst. But right now, Wolves are the worst team right now in the Premier League history, and Burnley just look done. They're ready to go down. They look like they've given up their soul until today when they beat Crystal Palace. It's the beauty of English football, man. You can go 1 week to, like I said earlier, from being trash and then all of a sudden winning an unexpected game that you're not supposed to win. And I love it, man. I love football. And of course, we've got World Cup content coming up in March with the Intercontinental Playoff, all that. It's going to be so much fun, y'all. We even though NFL season is over, we have got a lot of football still to go at. And with that, it's time for the end of another episode, y'all. I just want to say thank you so much for sticking around and listening to all of this. I'm so thankful that you all want to listen to this content and hear my thoughts on things in both sides of the football world. I greatly appreciate you listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. We have had so much fun talking about all of this. I just want to say, y'all, we've got a lot of content coming. The World Cup is happening this year, folks. I am so excited. We're going to have a lot of content on that. Also, of course, we're not going to give up our Premier League and Championship content. We're also going to cover MLS, which is coming back very soon as well. I'm so excited. We've got some potential guests lined up that we can look at and talk about all of that with. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, a rating and a follow goes such a long way. Share this with your friends who all like football, whether that be English or NFL. We would love for them to get to know us and show them the perspective that we like to share here on this show, giving each team and club a voice in this show. We love doing that. We'll be back soon with more chaos commentary and coverage from the championship and the NFL. And until next time, y'all, stay sharp.